In shows about scammers, why do folks seem shocked when churches are targeted? It's not like they're bastions of evidence and skepticism. So I've gotten one of those little YouTube kind of drain things where you click one video and you click the next video, and then all of a sudden all these videos show up and you find there's like channels of all these channels and showing all these things, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna watch like every single one of these. So I found this American Greed thing, and there's been different ones about different scammers. I don't know if I want to talk about this in a different one, but no, maybe just a bit here. But some of these scams seem so basic. I'm just like, no, that is clearly a scam. How did you fall for this? And then you have the people being interviewed talking about, this guy's a genius. That person was amazing. They were just so charismatic. And I completely trusted them. I was so shocked that they did this. I can't believe this happened. Like, why would they do this? I mean, they're a man of God. Look at the location they were in. That just tells me that they're somebody to be trusted and this and that. And I'm like, are you saying this because you actually believe it, or you have to talk it up in your mind that the only way I could fall for this is if that person really was somehow much smarter than I am, so that makes you feel better. It's like, it makes you feel more secure that, oh, maybe I won't fall for this again. When, no, the person just scammed you. There's a clear thing where, no, that person is really not that amazing. And one thing I did notice in particular was one where somebody's talking about this person went around and, he was using the church. He was going around and talking to churches, and then he would use that to kind of get the community towards him, and then get the conference, and get it. And that's horrible. It's really horrible that he was focusing on the church. That in specific, he was going for people in the church, like in this environment where they're supposed to be trusted. And I'm like, is that really that surprising? Because listen to what they normally say at churches. Are people at churches somehow, on average, a group of people that select for people that are more skeptical about people telling them things that sound nice and going in and be like, what is your evidence for you to say this? Why should I believe what you say about that? Oh, because some people in the past did this? Or where is the evidence that this actually happens? That, oh, I prayed and then this actually resulted from it. Where is it? There's no evidence. The evidence isn't there. So, of course, they will fall for scams. In my estimation, them being there actually shows that they might actually have a higher propensity for falling for scams. There's this kind of analogy I like to think of, like if you're creating a character in a role-playing game. Sometimes you have like HP, which is like health points, MP, magic points. So that's like the amount you can actually use to actually do certain things. Or then there's dexterity, wisdom, all these other things. So let's say you have religion as a thing that you should be skeptical about. And if you're not skeptical enough about it, you're actually going to fall for the stuff. Or you have to use enough energy, enough points or something, MP or something, to actually compartmentalize it enough to not be skeptical about it. So if something else comes by, you don't have any more points to compartmentalize that or to cognitively dissonance that other thing. So you'll be highly skeptical about that thing. But maybe in some cases, somebody has fallen to that thing because they're just so weak that it's already shown, this level of easily refutable material is something they've believed. So that shows me that I can come in and also make them fall for the stuff that I have that's also a little more complicated than this. And that is something that I've noticed. And this isn't something that is limited to one location. I look at certain ones. I've been watching a few of these. There's one I took down some notes I want to discuss. It's about this guy Solomon Dweck. You can look him up. This is a big thing in New Jersey, and this is not something that's new. People who think this has been something that's ended, or this is something that's just in religion, something just secular. It's all over the place. People are corrupt. People do these scams all over the place. It's a regular thing that's happened in humanity. The fact that we're hearing so much about it is the only thing that's new. There was one where I was listening to some cop who was talking about a man who had lost his job he was like a Wall Street broker, and he wasn't doing as well, and he had some PTSD. Apparently, they mentioned this just in passing, that he had some friends who actually died in the World Trade Center plane crashes and the aftermath of that, which is, and I can see that having a big effect in somebody's life. But he ended up not performing that well. He left. Then he decided to do this bank robberies, or he was just going in with these notes and saying, "I have a gun, give me the money." And then the people actually would give him the money. It was like thousands. He was taking out like on. I think the highest amount he took on one of those things was something like $6,900. He did 10 of them. $6,900. I think the lowest one was something like $2,500. Because banks don't really have that much money, cash on hand, in that kind of sense. But he was talking about how this person needs to go out and get a job. I can't believe he's doing this. I can't believe he's going out here. Like you have a family to supply for. You're supposed to actually just go out and get a job. You can't believe you're just doing this and taking other people's money. I'm like, wait, you work for the state. Your money is paid by taxes. That also happens in a situation where they take money away from other people and pay you in that kind of way. So where are you talking about these things? So there is that situation where people just talking about what they're doing. But see, that was a simple thing. The person never had a gun, but simply, I'm going to take this gun. So that was considered part of this American greed, American scammers type of thing. The scammer ones is more particular where somebody goes through a whole plan and it's more a confidence game, a con kind of game thing. But that also happens with the state as well. But this one was this guy Solomon Dweck. I took some notes here. Solomon Dweck was this Hasidic Jew. I think he was Persian Jew. And this one thing I'm talking about, people don't like Semites, like anti-Semitic stuff. Like most Jewish people are also Semites, but most Arab people in the Middle East area, it's Semitic peoples. It's an actual this genetic aspect of it. It's not strictly the religion. But when people say anti-Semitism, they seem to think specifically of people of the Jewish religion, tradition, culture. Yet I think it covers Persia, it covers that whole region and things like that. You don't necessarily have to be a believer of the Jewish religion. Anyway, so some of the things he was doing was something like he would do this thing where he pays $100K to schools. Like wealthy people donate $100,000 to a school, and then he gets 5% of that money. The school gets 10%, and then at the back end, the school kind of just gives the money back. So this is ways to avoid paying taxes. And the added mentioned how the wealthy people, or in general, a lot of people in the community, are about paying as few taxes as possible. And this is something most people say, even people who are pro-taxes. If I tell you in person, do you try to pay as few taxes as you possibly can? Most people will say yes. Most people don't actually take that whole thing to give extra money to the government, because you can do that. You can gift the government with money. You can gift the state with money. But people want to keep as much of what's theirs and also invariably take as much of their fair share of other people's actual goods. That is something that happens at a personal level and a community level. So as the case with Solomon Dweck was unfolding, as this documentary continued, it's actually showing the tie-in with the religious and the political people. There's people in the religious communities, rabbis and things like this, and politicians, because this thing is hand in hand. The state is general just legal mafioso. That's pretty much what it is. And he got caught up, he got hemmed up for his initial things, which is more just money laundering and things like this, but these are connected. There actually are bigger connections, interconnections with these things. Part of why people, I think, are so open to the whole deep state type of idea or conspiracies is because they personally conspiracy and have these kind of organizations within their own groups. Whatever in-group they have, that is what it's established on. In-groups are more defined by the lies they tell rather than the truths about the world that they share, because the truths are open to anyone. So there's a term that is called Moser, which is Hebrew for informer, and that normally leads with you being excommunicated. This was an older case. The guy, I think Solomon Dweck, actually has been released from jail. This was an older documentary from the time that he actually got from this, because I think he turned state's evidence, so he got a lesser actual sentencing. He served 2 concurrent terms or something like that, and he got out after 3 and something years, even though there was, as I'll get into here, millions of dollars involved in this, and a lot of human trafficking. Actually got to human trafficking, human organ harvesting that was involved in it. And it's like, wow. But when you turn state's evidence, they normally give you a lesser sentence. So that was involved in that. He was called that, and they said one of the worst things for him personally was he was excommunicated from his community. So even after he came out of jail, he couldn't go back to his old community in like the New Jersey area that he was involved in. So after he was initially caught and he turned state's evidence, he decided, let me actually tell you there's more things. There's more people involved in this. There's actually politicians involved. At that time, Chris Christie was an American politician. He was the governor of Jersey later on. But at that time, he was the attorney general of New Jersey. And he was somewhat interested, but he was like, okay, just rabbis, we can't necessarily do that because we understand that is not popular. If we do this, the political machine will actually raise ire in the high level of Jewish voters in the area that will not completely accept what's being done here, and we might lose our positive position. But once Chris Christie supposedly heard that politicians were involved in it, then it's like, okay, it's worth the risk. We can get in this. And these are just the calculations that people make. It's just ill. So it ended up being, yes, this bigger ring of rabbis involved in it and other people in the Jewish community involved in it. It was a global thing where they're actually having money laundering of up to 120,000 to 150,000, where this guy, Solomon Dweck, wanted to just money launder lower amounts of money, and you're like, no, that's small potatoes. It's not worth the risk. So you have to get those rookie numbers in this racket. You got to pump those numbers up. So they were like, yeah, 120, 150K for illegal kidneys. They were doing things where they would actually bring people in from the Middle East, from different areas, so they can harvest their kidneys to give to wealthy actual donors. I think Solomon Dweck or somebody else they had mentioned, one of his actual older relatives had actually gotten one of these illegally harvested kidneys. Now, when it comes to the actual thing, legal, illegal, like I said, states are just legal mafioso. I think if you are an adult and you literally want to sell one of your kidneys to somebody else directly, somebody who says, this person is in hospital and they, for whatever reason, don't have any money. This other person is a billionaire and they're saying, I need that same kidney and I am willing to pay you $10 million for your kidney. You should be allowed as a person to pick that billionaire over that other person. It may suck for that person's family, that person without the money. They might end up losing a relative. But at the same point, you personally, who are willing to give the kidney, who am I to say you should miss out on that 10 billion? Because I probably wouldn't give my kidney to somebody for that. But somebody else might be in dire straits enough where they have a family that would benefit from that money, and you're keeping that away. You're keeping that transaction away. The transaction is still going to happen. People still do that. People will find illegal ways to do that. Will find ways to do it without security for all parties involved. So I'd rather these things kind of just be legalized. Okay. So that's just an aside on that. Let me see what else is on this. So the guy ended up wearing a wire, starting to go in and talk to the money launderers who are doing these higher things. They talked to somebody, this older Jewish man, who was like, yeah, society's against me. And unless I actually, and it was more like a Jewish Jersey accent, so I don't know how to do the accent in the right way that's not just completely insulting and everything, so I'm not going to try to do it. But the guy was talking about this, the same rhetoric you see from people on the political left in general, people in Black Lives Matter, things. So these relations that you see that are similarities with in-group, out-group dynamics, where the guy was talking about how he's doing this, he's engaging in this criminal activities, because unless he gets into this construction thing and does these things ins and outs of paying these people these things and getting these actual licenses and getting these actual regulators and getting these people in his pocket and laundering this amount of money, if he doesn't do this, society will be against him and look at him and hold him down. So you have people who look at people in this community and say this community is a lot more wealthy, this community is a lot better off. Another thing that I've seen and heard about from the Jewish community in specific, both in the Jersey and New York City area, is welfare fraud of different things. It wasn't anywhere as close to something that, it may have been close, but I saw this other scam thing about this offshoot of the Church of Latter-day Saints. I think it was like a mix between Mormonism and Amish communities, where this guy started his own community and he had these different stores where they would engage in these welfare fraud type of things, where people would go in and list and say, oh, we're charging this and this and this to this welfare thing, we have this many kids, but they don't actually get the actual thing, so they somehow wrote the notes to the actual government and the government would send them the money. And whatever, the state, even if the state is doing things you think are positive, what makes you think they are the ones who are able to actually secure these situations? Because all these scam things that you see, there is complete complicity or just inability from the state to actually catch and stop these people from doing these things. Sometimes they're directly involved, but when the people actually get caught, it is not because of some sting operation. It's normally some state official just happens to, some policeman happens to just stumble upon somebody who's doing some lower crime thing that seems rather stupid. I can't believe you got caught doing this. It's completely chance. Then that person decides to flip and says, yeah, I have more on these other people. And then once they say that, then it starts getting kicked up higher the ladder until it gets to the point it's like, okay, this is a level. Then now we can work with this informant somehow to catch these other people. And it gets to the point it's like, okay, this level, we got to cut it off at this level because now it's getting too powerful. Like, we can get everybody else below this person. It just gets to that kind of situation where it's like, okay, you haven't really caught anyone. it's just a luck type of thing. So get a better system. So anyway, so that's a transition to the last couple of notes I had on here. You're going to building inspectors and things like that, where yes, that's complete state thing. They completely understand part of these regulations and laws that come up. Like recently, Governor Cuomo, I think, or it might have been Mayor de Blasio. Same kind of political creature we're talking about here when it comes to the whole aspects of being involved in this bureaucracy. Apex predator, apex politician, political predator in that sense. They know how to swim in these waters and feed off of people. They had this law saying you couldn't serve alcohol without food for some reason due to like something to do with the pandemic. And I'm wondering with some of these things and changes, why do they do these? Why do you make these changes to these laws? What are the kickbacks? I don't understand. Do you want like higher amounts of building regulations, or you have enough people in the food lobby that now, or the liquor store lobby, maybe they don't want to have the competition, where now it's either just buying stuff directly from the liquor store, or now these people have to have more actual regulations and regulators and laws for the food they're serving and buy more things and equip better things or hire more people, and then that way there's more tax revenue. I'm just wondering what is the reasoning for some of the incompetence that you see in some of these things. So anyway, winding down the story with Solomon Dweck, he went in and he had a wire, he had a camera, a hidden camera, and he was talking to Leona Boldini, which is a department manager, deputy mayor at the Jersey City, the Democratic Committee there, and he's talking about this openly, like, yes, this is the stuff. And she was using a little more coded language. He wouldn't come out and say that, even though they knew what was going on. And you could see that with different levels. Some people at certain points were just, we're just going to come out and openly talk about this. And the later one here, they talked about Peter Camerano from Hoboken, New Jersey, who was a younger politician. He was in his 30s, I think like 31 or something. He was up and coming in the actual environment. And he was just more open about what he was saying. And this is one thing that I've looked about with politicians. The older ones are more sly. You look at the Nancy Pelosi's, you look at the Mary Bill de Blasio's. No, maybe not de Blasio, but you look at someone like Cuomo, they seem more sly about what they're saying and what they're doing. Even the Bernie Sanders type. Then you look at someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and this is part of why I was excited about people like this coming out, and just people in politics in general. They're just open about what they're doing. They're just open about their socialist agendas. They're just open about their religion. They're more open and not as sly and hiding the things. And I think, to me, it's positive. These are things that are going on anyway, so we might as well see them. We might as well see them for the truth that it's actually going on. So to me, I was glad to see that you get to see what was happening. Because these are the things that were going on regardless. These level of scams have been going on since the beginning of the ability to tell somebody information about things they don't understand and gain from it. That has been going on. Whether it's just the outright established scams that are religions, or the political versions of it, or these supposedly criminalized versions where we say these people are done. But there's always going to be marks out there. I think for the foreseeable future, there's going to be marks, and there's going to be people who are willing to take advantage of these people. It's just the way life is, and let me know what you think about these things. Do you think there is some sort of qualitative difference of actually scamming people using a church or using religious organizations versus secular ones? And do you think there's much of a difference now for some people who look at the state as more of a religious thing, but look at traditional theologies as something that's fake? What would the qualitative difference, if you think there is one there? If somebody has been on any political left, political right, and they believed the person was telling them something because they thought that was actually going to help their community and end up being something that's just enriching them, you have these race hustlers out there and people like that who are just saying filth, flaw, and filth, and just singing all the way to the bank, not believing what they're saying. And you think those are worth scammers? What makes a scam more unethical to you? How much is it based on what you consider moral versus the actions that are actually going on in that scam, or the amount of money? Like, do you think if somebody just doesn't admit to the scam, or somebody turns state evidence, they should get a lower sentence, even though more people may have been affected? Because I saw that one guy who was doing that, going to the bank and just saying, give me those $1,000, give me the money that you have. He got sentenced to something like 9 years. And then Solomon Dweck, who even just his initial things were $100,000 being donated to schools and given out. So he was getting something like $5,000 per pop on those. How many of those did he do? So even just his initial things, before getting into the levels where he's talking about politicians and things, $100,000 of human trafficking, human organs and things like that, he's got 3 years. So what is your take on those kind of things? So that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe. I appreciate you taking your time to listen to this. I really am thankful when you guys hit me up in the comment sections and let me know what you're thinking. Have you been caught in a scam before? Or do you know somebody that was caught in a scam? What was that scam about? Have you thought of any scams that you might actually have out there? Or do you think what do you think what kind of reasoning do you think would go behind for you to actually be in a scam? Do you think advertising or marketing is like a simple scam? Like, let's say I personally worked for Coca-Cola and they're paying my actual bills, and I, for some reason, think Pepsi's better, taste is better. Or I actually have some kind of thing where I can objectively tell you that the combination of what makes Pepsi as an actual drink as a cola is better than what people say with Coke, but then I go out there and I just advertise anyway. Is that also a scam? What is the level of those kind of things? So anyway, so that's it. Like, share, subscribe. Till next time, goodbye.